Hey guys, it's Jim here, and today's podcast is all about offsets. I got to talk to somebody who loves them just as much as I do. His name is Eddie, also known as Totally Wired Guitars on both Instagram and YouTube. He runs his own shop out of New York City where he custom modifies, repairs, and builds guitars for people that specializes in the offset variety. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff as far as building guitars, how expensive parts are, and how hard they are to find if you want to build your own parts guitar that's offset style, as well as our own dream guitars that if we were in charge of Fender for a day, we would put into production. And I think that that is a really good place for us to start. So without further ado, let's get into it. I got one question for you today.
Yeah, what's that?
Say I was to give you a position at Fender Guitars and you were allowed to put any model into production you wanted. It could be a model that they used to make, or it could be a
Right.
twist on a model. What would it be and why?
It would most likely be a Heritage 60s Jaguar with a multitude of custom colors, no less than five probably in burgundy mist metallic, charcoal frost metallic. I would probably do an Aztec gold, Sonic blue, and what is one other favorite custom color of mine?
House
Probably
turquoise.
Sherwood green. What is it?
House turquoise.
Taos turquoise. Or even I do love that Tahitian coral color as well too. That is a fantastic color that we just don't see enough. So if it's not that one, then maybe shell pink. I like shell pink as well.
All right. For those that are not familiar with the Heritage series,
Yeah.
what exactly are they?
Ah. So for folks that aren't familiar, the Heritage Series is basically a Fender Japan made um, almost AVRI spec guitar. They have nitrocellulose, like gloss finishes, both the body and neck, all premium components. Uh, and yeah, they're just fantastic guitars. The as far as the Jazz Masters went, it was better than any AVRI 62 that I have ever played. The one thing that I would definitely probably instruct if I was in charge of the Heritage 60s Jaguar is I feel like I did like the neck of the Heritage 60s Jazzmaster a lot. I feel like maybe I would have a bit of a return because I feel like there aren't enough slimmer neck options for Jaguars anymore. Like I feel like since the AV65 Fender all around the world has gone in favor of like the chunky C shape. So I feel like I would give like a bit, a bit more of a slimmer taper, but with the full size nut width.
Understandable. That's a good choice, and I agree with you. I mean, I had a Heritage Jazz Master. I thought they
Yeah.
were awesome, but I would go with a model that wasn't a Jaguar, believe it or not,
Oh,
or
what
obviously a
mod?
Jazz Master. No Jazz
Oh,
Master.
okay. Okay, no Jazz Master.
I think Fender could do a lot of good for themselves. They have never made an American vintage Mustang. Now,
Oh,
hear me out here.
yeah,
First of all, they've recreated a lot of interest with the Mustang with the Ventera 1 and then the Ventera 2.
right,
So,
right,
that you do have options if you want something more traditional. They do make those.
right,
But you could make those at a lower price point for people because when the Mustang was first introduced, it
right.
was a student price guitar.
Exactly.
Offer one of those with a higher end dynamic vibrato unit because the Achilles heel to the Japanese
Yeah,
ones are those units. And part of the
right,
reason they don't stay in tune as well or they'll die out quicker is because of those vibrato units on those. They're
right,
not nearly as good as the old ones that came on the ones from the 60s and the
right,
70s.
r-
So
right,
if we just did that, all you have to reissue are three colors, the blue,
right.
the red, and the white. You don't
Yep.
have to do any matching of the headstock. You do a short scale, no
Right,
binding, no fancy anything. And it would give
right,
people, something that could potentially be around the same price as an American Professional too. And I
right,
think it would sell excellent.
Oh, I think I agree. Well, but how much is an American Professional 2 going for these
I
days? New? Like 18?
1750, I believe,
Okay.
just to be
Okay.
conservative.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think that those would sell like really well overall. I agree with you on the I mean, I love the Mustang. I hate the vibrato of the Mustang. And I make it no secret that I'm just like if I were in charge, I would probably build I haven't built one yet, but I've been meaning to source a Mustang body that's been routed for the Jaguar vibrato. Like they call them the Belinda
Belinda
Stangs.
Stangs.
Yeah, the Belinda Stangs. Because they've always intrigued me because I really love just like the shape of the Mustang body, and I love like vintage style Mustang pickups. Everything about the Mustang I love except for, and you're so right about like the 60s vibratos being like way better. I don't know. Is it the springs? The
No,
posts?
it's the actual bridge plate itself.
Really? Oh wow. Wait, what's the difference that you found between the
Well, I'm not an engineer, but the people
Okay.
that are smarter than me, 'cause
Yeah.
I've always wondered. I was just like, well, Fender Japan have always made really good stuff. Why can't they get the
Right.
like?
Right.
And one of the explanations I received out was it had to do with the actual knife edge of where it meets.
Okay.
So that made sense to me because one of the biggest selling points and things I noticed between using the American Vintage Stratocaster vibrato versus the
Right.
Callahan
Right.
unit stays in tune way better with bar use
Right.
because of that.
Right.
Um, maybe that's what it is right there. Maybe it's something because it can't just be the springs. Otherwise, everyone would know the secret is, oh, you just buy these different springs and then you remove the vibrato
Right.
and you just
Right. Right.
replace the
Right.
springs. So it's
Right.
either
Right.
that or I don't see how it could be the bar either, the cigar bar, which is the thing that the strings go
Yeah.
on a Fender Mustang.
Right. Right. Right.
That's something
Right.
that because they do offer the American Performer Mustangs, and those
Right.
vibratos actually stay in tune a little bit better.
Right.
They're not routed so that you can have them like a Mustang. You have to do it the three-way
Right.
selector or nothing. But the actual
Right.
vibrato on those are pretty good.
Right. Right. And those are produced in the United States? Those
Yeah,
vibratos? Oh, fascinating.
apparently.
That's
Apparently.
the other thing that I would love. I mean, hey, you're gonna go ham like Fender Japan. I wish like there's all that talk about like the Mark Kendrick master builder guy going to Japan like back in whenever that was 2018 or whatever to oversee like the unification of like the profiling data between Fender Japan and Fender USA. And it's like, guys, just use the American, just use the American, even though I feel like the Japanese units you and I have talked about that, they've gotten better over time. And I actually have kept a few of them stock and just been like, wow, this is actually a joy to play as compared to even like the newer production American vintage vibratos, which feel like really stiff. I feel like on the ones that come on the American vintage twos or some of the newer production American original offsets where they changed. You've probably noticed
I
nerd
have one
stuff,
here. Yeah, I have one here,
nerd
and it's
stuff.
so tight. The vibrato
Yeah.
is so tight on.
Yeah, I
I
feel
don't.
like they overcompensated that. I feel like that stuff that a few people were talking about with the panorama tremolo. I feel like they might have overcompensated and started shipping everything with way stiffer springs now to address that probably because supposedly those panorama vibratos are now fixed. That's what I've heard. Like, how do
Maybe.
you know? How do you know if a seller has liquidated their old non-fixed ones? Who knows? Did they reissue new part numbers? I don't know. We're not sure about that, but that's the only thing I can think of. And so when I play a well set up, newer production Japanese one, I'm just like, wow, this is like so bouncy and so fluid. Like I remember like those older AVRI units to be. Um, I wonder if they sent Fender Japan all of their old springs from the older AVRI units. I could start a whole podcast on conspiracy theories, Fender offset production.
I would be for it, but I feel like there's too many to go through, even in just like the Jaguar alone. I feel like there's a
I
lot
know.
of conspiracy theories against that guitar.
I don't know. I don't understand. There's so many iconic players. Like, why not the love? Is it just because people are too basic? Like people are like short scale. What? No.
No, I think part of it is just I don't even necessarily agree that people would be attracted to it because of a guitar hero playing it or somebody that really like playing
Uh-huh.
it. I do
Right.
understand that's always going to make up a market. Like Bruce
Sure,
Springsteen
sure, sure.
was always going to sell Tellys, Hendrix was
Right,
always
right,
going to
right.
sell Strats, and to a much
Right.
lesser degree, Johnny Marr is going to sell some Jaguars. Uh,
Sure, sure.
but at the end of the day, I feel like if they did a better job of across the board making quality control a little bit better, but also
Right.
really focusing on weight for the Jaguar and the Jazzmaster specifically,
Yeah.
because you'll know
Yeah.
this. You have a vintage Jag. It is
Yeah.
not difficult to find one of those well under 8 pounds.
Right. Right.
But nowadays, and it's not like there's any extra in the guitars, they still had the copper plating
Right.
inside of the cavities. It was still
Yeah,
all
yeah.
shielded well, but they all
Right.
weighed well under it. Well, not all, but it was very easy.
Yeah.
If you go on Reverb right now, I was looking at a Lake Placid Blue, all original,
Yeah.
7 pounds, 8 ounces.
Wow.
You'd
Yeah.
never
That's even
find that with
lighter
an
than the one that
American
I
one.
have. Yeah.
Never
It's
find that.
true. It's true. And Fender Japan does them, right? I feel like I found like, on so if you buy from sources that list the weights, like the specific weights of the guitars, they are using on most of the ones that I've found, they were basswood, but some of those FSR traditional two ones, yeah, I got one. I think one of them was about 7 pounds, 8 ounces. One of them was even lighter than that. And I was like, and this is alder.
Wow.
How are they doing it? And I feel like by comparison, the American ones, like the last series, pretty much every single American original one that I have found, and even some of them, I feel like most of the AV65 ones that have come in shop, they're about to hit 9 pounds, if not over, right? The majority of the Johnny Marr ones are like, yeah, 8.8 pounds.
Pretty much right on the dot.
Heavy, heavy as heck. Um, and that doesn't even make, I mean, like, I feel like there can be some things. Here's something that I wanted to tell you, because I remember that you were um, mulling over potentially doing a custom build Jaguar that was more lightweight. And I did find quite the savings in weight when I started to, or when I've used these aftermarket aluminum plates
Wait,
instead. It shockingly, I feel like it saved like almost a pound.
no way.
Yeah, I'm not joking, because and maybe it was a bit different on this because this was like, a Mar style build, right? So maybe because there isn't the whole there's not the weight of the wheels, and there's not the weight of like the bracket and the pots and all that stuff, and instead you just have two little switchcraft switches. But I swear to you, like, I built a Jag from a one of the classic vibe 70s bodies, and already that was pretty light. That was like 3 pounds 4 ounces somehow, and that was poplar. But then I added these aluminum plates on top because this guy wanted the Ronsky plate instead of the Mar plate, so I had to buy the whole set because I couldn't get a Ronsky plate from anywhere. And I was
Sure.
like, holy Toledo! Like, I compared it against, the actual like Mar plates that I had, and I swear it was like close to 1 pound that I was like saving from those plates.
That's
It was
wild.
nuts. So that guitar came in at like, it was like it was a Jaguar that was like 7.1 pounds. And I know that was it you that was telling me like there is such a thing as going too light on on a Jag? Is that you?
It feels like a toy. I had
Yeah.
one, and I like light guitars. Like it's
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
funny. I have the Fender Super Thin Line Deluxe Telecaster that was
Oh yeah.
a Japanese made Fender, and that is right at 7 pounds. My Sir,
Right.
my Alt T, which is really
Right.
similar, is
Yeah.
6 pounds and 13 ounces, something like that.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
I like guitars around that weight. I had
Yeah.
one of those FSR shell pink Jaguars from
Yeah.
Japan with the basswood body that weighed less than the Sir did. And
Whoa.
Yeah, that's why I bought it because I was
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this is a
This is
misprint.
gonna be awesome.
This is no, it's a misprint. Like, there's no way it's this
Yeah.
light. And
Right, right,
sure
right.
enough, it felt wrong.
Whoa. It
Like
felt wrong.
it felt wrong. It was too light. It's
Whoa.
so strange to say that, but like the neck
Yeah.
felt like it was gonna go on
Gonna
me
dive.
at
Right.
any second. And that's if you're
Right.
familiar with Fender Jaguars,
Yeah.
that's never something you're concerning
Right,
yourself.
right, right. No, no, no. Never. And that's with a strap, you're saying. Like you've got the strap on
Yeah.
and you're about to play it's doing the SG thing.
It's starting to, and I say no because that's one of the main reasons I immensely dislike that model, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
Neck dive is
Right,
just
right.
not something I'm used to dealing with personally, and
Right.
especially on a
Right, right,
guitar
right.
that doesn't typically have that problem. I notice
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
immediately.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I'd like to get my hands on one. And there's someone I was looking at Reverb because as a custom builder, and someone also who doesn't always build from raw parts
Yeah.
too. Every now and again I'm on the hunt. Are people selling, like handmade body or like aftermarket bodies and stuff? And one guy has a beautiful guitar mill Jaguar body up on Reverb right now. He hasn't budged from his $450 price point. But it's beautiful Olympic white, like
I know the
beautifully
body.
relic finish, and it's Polonia. It's Polonia, and I think it's like it might be sub 3 pound or something crazy. Where it's just like I had to ask him questions. And it was like, buddy, are all of the areas where you have to put screws in plugged? I was like, I need to know that because if you can't answer that question for me with that kind of wood, because I know that that's something that Guitar Mill specifically does. Like if you request it on those, lighter weight woods that they use sometimes.
Yeah.
And he couldn't tell me. So I was like, man, as beautiful as this body is, I can't chance it.
That's really funny because I knew exactly as soon as you said Guitar Mill and it was on Reverb, I was just
Yeah.
yeah, it's Ollie White one.
Yeah.
But that just shows
I
how
bet you
degenerate we are.
we're like one of maybe like 20 psychos in the world that are like constantly checking for the same like search terms over and over again. That's really, really funny. And yeah, I mean slim pickings on that front too. I feel like with Jaguars, like Jaguars are down bad in like every category really, with the exception of Fender Japan. As far as even parts and stuff are concerned, you just don't see the ones that you will see most often are ones that are going to need routing. Like you see Stratosphere selling player two Jaguar bodies like all day, every day, but I don't want one. I don't want one of those. I'm not interested in any of those colors. I don't want to route. And if I did, like if I wanted to do that, yeah, it comes down to the colors. Like I'm not going to spend even if it's cheap, 200 or $300 for a body and then have to route it and then have to paint it to get the colors that I want.
Unless you're the one doing all of that and you're a pro at it and you already have a
Yeah.
flow where you're not just doing it for the
Yep.
one guitar. If you
Yep. Yep.
got it
Yep.
in a line, you're going through, it's just like
Yep.
okay, we got five
Yep.
bodies coming through, or I'm thinking
Yeah.
five next, then it makes sense. But
Right.
if you're just an
Yeah.
individual person and you just want to build a guitar because
Right.
as we know with the Jaguar, it's
Right.
tough pickings right now if you're looking to buy one of these things.
Right. Right. Right.
You're really limited. You have Guitar Mill for bodies. You have MJT,
Yeah.
which is going to be really, really dependent on how much you want your guitar to relic immediately. Some people they don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't say that to
Yeah.
to say anything mean about them. It's just the
Right.
fact
Right.
of the
Right. Right.
matter is the finish is so thin, it will
Right.
come off with very, very little effort.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have to give that caveat to people who come to me for custom builds. I don't use MJT, and I use a number of different services. I'll just leave them unnamed for right now, but I've
Sure.
had to go with different teams depending on what the client needs because I found, closet clean is not always clean. And closet clean might chip off if I just look at it funny. Um, and so then that's down on me, right? Like at that point, I can't sit there and point the finger at the finisher because I'm the one that's responsible for building the end guitar. So I've had to move into the OEM finisher space and just like find teams that do OEM work. And at that point, you know that this is not just,
Not a
yeah,
hobby
it's
for
not a hobby
money.
anymore. But
For
at the
money.
same time, when you compare between well-known finishing teams that are maybe working a smaller operation out of, a space that they rent versus an OEM finisher, I was shocked to find that the price differential is not much.
No.
It's actually not much at all. And if anything, it inspired me to be like, you know what? Like I might just go with the OEM finisher from here on out. And that sucks for the small guys who are trying to like, rise up, but it's just like at the end of the day, I need consistency, especially if I'm looking to move toward becoming a brand of my own
Yeah.
now. Like I need to forge those relationships now because I don't want to be guessing like later on and then have unhappy I don't have any unhappy clients at this point. It's been almost 16 years, Jim. And it's like, I don't want that to change. I don't...
Especially if you're not going to be responsible for that part not coming
Yeah,
up the way that you would be proud of. And everybody has different
right.
standards. The more people that you
Right,
have
right,
in the
right.
basket, it's different. And with an independent person, you also have
Right.
that, like kind of human aspect where if they
Yeah,
do something and it was closet clean and it definitely wasn't, or it
right.
just wasn't a good job because this stuff happens.
Right, right, right.
Then all of a
Right,
sudden
right,
you
right.
you have a third party now that you
Yeah,
have to make it right with, and
right, right, right,
that
right.
sucks for
And
everyone
then yeah,
involved.
yeah, it does suck. And I've unfortunately had to experience those things in even the recent past. And it's just about narrowing down like, hey, when it comes to working with a finisher, are they good communicators? Are they open and transparent about what's going on? Or
Yeah.
are they going to kind of purposefully not update you because they don't want feedback and they're not open to feedback if they are effing something up? I've experienced that unfortunately and not to throw anyone under the bus, but it's some of the more well-known names out there. Where it's just like you're giving me excuses. Like I could make a video right now and just like put your name all over this, but I'm not going to do that because
Yeah.
you're
It's
human,
somebody's
you make
livelihood.
mistakes. Hopefully you will learn from this, or hopefully if you don't learn from it, I'm I'm not going to be the one to say I'm not going to be the one to say it at this moment in time. That's not my job, but other people will find out and the internet works its magic in ways that if you are letting people down like left and right, it's going to come out eventually.
I think a good rule of thumb for anybody who's potentially considering buying a guitar that's pre-finished, when you're
Hmm.
looking at whoever the person that's supplying the body from, if
Right.
they will not give you the option for new old stock gloss,
Right.
like
Right.
perfect. If they will not even give you that option, some places
Right. Right. Right.
you as an option that's free of charge. Some people will charge you an upcharge to do that. But if
Right.
they
Right. Right.
don't
Right.
even
Right.
offer it, I
Right.
wouldn't advise
That's
going there because they're not
right.
gonna, they can't guarantee that
Right.
they can do a
Right.
perfect
Right.
job.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. There's that attention to detail, and I feel like a crazy person, and I don't want to seem like a total a-hole in this if this is going to make it to being shown, but yeah, that attention to detail is just like the level of integrity that I try to hold myself to. I wish I had the ability to either duplicate myself or just have a very tight-knit team so that everything is under the same ecosystem and umbrella and not because the more things you outsource, I'm starting to learn as a custom builder and stuff. The more things are out of your control, and the only thing that matters to me at the end of the day is just quality and consistency. That's like I'm not here for like excuses. I'm not here. And if something does come up and it was your thing, like it just the most disappointing thing is to think that you were working with a team that has like the utmost like integrity, right? And then to find out otherwise later on, and you're just being fed excuses after I don't know the third, fourth mistake on the fourth build that you're doing, and you're like, at a certain point, I think I need to pull the plug here. Because it's my butt that's going to be on the line later on, unless I get fed up enough to be like, and this is the wonderful work of so and so team.
It's
here's
not worth it.
here's the images of all the ways they effed up the finishes on these guitars. Yeah, I think that's again we come back to capitalism because obviously at some point. I feel like, because and that's how teams like this like build their reputation. At some point you were fantastic. At some point you were good. But now because you are prioritizing volume over quality control, uh now you're skipping steps. You're becoming careless. You're not taking the time to clean up very basic things like clean up the fretboard before you send it to me. Clean up your spray marks before. But no, it's like, dude, I didn't know that was a caveat of work. But anyway, I'm airing my grievances.
I know.
But that's something that folks do need to be aware of, because just because you go with someone that you saw was recommended on Reddit or a guitar forum doesn't mean that you are going to you're going to have the same awesome experience, especially if that thread was from, even if it was from last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things can change so fast once people decide to switch their priority, and if they don't hold up, you know, if their integrity matters less to them than doing volume because they need to, then unfortunately that's just a natural consequence
I get what
of
you're saying.
operating in that way. Yeah.
I think that there's two other things that are should be considered though. The
Yeah.
first of which is that so long as the customers are okay and they don't
Hmm.
have because me and you we're very similar as far as just like I don't accept like baseline errors or things not being exactly that. I just don't do it, and
Right.
I love to come
Right.
back.
Right.
So I could be a pain in the ass. Um,
Right.
so long as people are like they shrug it off, they're like, oh, whatever, like or
Yeah.
they do the worst thing you could do almost because it's a smaller person, or maybe it's just a one person shop, or
Yeah.
it's a smaller business. They'll be
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
I feel like, I feel like a jerk if I complain about this. You know what? Like, it's not like I'm going against a big mega corporation. So
Right. Right.
I
Right.
won't say anything bad on the internet and I'll just live with it as it is.
Right. Right. Right.
So long as people keep paying it and they don't tell the truth, like the consumers, and they accept these problems, there is no incentive for those people to either get back on
Right. Right.
track if
Right.
they developed a good reputation or
Right.
to
Right.
get better at what they're doing. And the other
Right.
thing is the beauty of capitalism to me is places like Sir would never have existed if Fender didn't start dropping the ball for a certain amount of time,
Right.
or if
Right.
they
Right.
didn't open up their minds to more things in the market. Because Fender,
Right.
like, there's nothing Sir builds that's out of the realm of possibility for anybody at Fender to build, for example.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
just somebody who has the same kind of ideals that we do, Mr. John Sir, like
Right.
perfectionist. And that's not, a one size fits all thing, but for some people,
Right.
it's enough to establish a brand and it's alternative, so it fills in the market, and it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, I feel in some ways, not to be a drama queen about it, but I feel complicit, in my like kind of at just juncture to be unwilling to be like, okay, I'm gonna air this out publicly now. Because I feel for them. These are people that I like work with. I've mostly or like I've for at least for some time have had good relationship with these folks. And it's just like at a certain point, you're just not meeting my needs. I think that's what, for me, at the end of the day, that's my thought process. Where like, you're just not meeting my needs anymore. And I just have found somewhere else and I need to go. And that's kind of where it is. But I just hope that at the end of the day, that, for folks, whether you're finishing or whether you're building or whether you're doing, you know, I have folks out here in New York that are posting on Craigslist and they're doing 75, $70 setups and stuff like that. And that's where I got started, like very, very long time ago, 15 plus years ago. That's what a friend who I built a jazz master for had told me. He's like, just put it up on Craigslist, just offer your services and come in at under what the major stores and stuff around here are charging. And but I just hope that all these, for all these folks, I feel like a lot of my clientele are disgruntled are disgruntled like customers of other places that ended up having their offset guitars get effed up because all they do is Tellys and Gibsons, and they pulled the shim out. They pulled the shim out and they lowered the bridge because this is how it's supposed to be, and it's like, oh my goodness. But yeah, I feel like, I just hope that at the end of the day, especially now, people's money is it. is not something to be to be trifled with. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are working hard to have that service done for you. So just, if try to put yourself, that's what I say to these folks, like put yourself in their shoes, not just your own well-being and not just your own livelihood, but put yourself in their shoes. And that's how I think. And that's why I feel like I work so many unpaid hours just to make sure that, like, is this at the end of the day something that I'm going to be happy with? Because if I'm not, then we have to go back to the drawing board, unfortunately. And I do lose time and I lose money on that, but it's important. I don't want to disappoint anybody.
I understand that, and time is money. You should know that you haven't been a drama queen, because if you were being
Yeah.
a drama queen, you would have named and shamed. That's the
Right.
difference, because we're like the same age. We're like a year apart,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you get to a certain point. I mean, you're clearly frustrated, but at the end of the day, don't worry about it. It's in the past.
Yeah.
Go forward.
Yeah.
I want to
Uh,
ask you about your future, though. You said you were
yeah.
thinking about potentially building your own guitars. My
Yes.
my
Yes.
question to you is a little bit specific.
Sure.
When you want to build these guitars, are you thinking of going more along the Nash route, where you take very traditional designs and you just kind of put, your own little tweaks here and there? Or are you thinking of original designs? Or
Hmm.
what are you thinking about building?
Um, that's funny. No, I only say it's funny because you brought up Nash, who I do have a history of interactions with, but we won't
Okay.
go in that
So
direction.
don't. So
Um,
don't. Stop it.
but but I think that what I want to do is basically, and I think you brought up something good when we had a conversation when I had mentioned to you that I might be moving in this direction. And I think a focus on short scales is a cool idea. My like love for the Jaguar design is immense. I just want to build good guitars, like good, whether it be Jaguars or Jazzmasters or Mustangs. I feel like I want to stay within the Fender design language. I want to build a headstock that is unoffensive, like to people who love that design language, but still minor changes enough to not get friggin' sued.
Yeah.
Um, but I like vintage specs, and I think that those little details, like the little details that I feel like a big corporation can't not overlook, right? Because they're mass producing instruments. I feel like that tender love and care that I put into parts caster builds would translate into the instruments that I make if I move into just like a small batch kind of custom build operation. Um, so that's kind of what I want to do. I feel like I would probably move into trying to find like like my partners, of which I've met so many folks already in the offset hardware and pickups scene, and just have things tweaked to my particular taste, which I think that a lot of folks who have played the guitars I've built have been like, "Oh crap, what is this? Like, what are the specs on this thing?" And if I could translate that to, my own brand, then I think that at least on a smaller scale, we could potentially be successful.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So charcoal frost, burgundy mist metallic. Hold
Yup,
on, hold on,
yup,
hold on.
yup,
Aztec gold,
yup.
house turquoise.
Yeah. That'll be the gym
It's shell pink.
signature.
It's shell
And
pink.
shell pink. Yup.
See,
Yeah.
I always
Good
get told I
memory.
don't listen. You know what I mean? You get married, sometimes you pretend you're just like you're out of
Oh
it.
yeah.
But dude, if you don't remember everything, like you're gonna pay for it
Yeah.
later. So I actually
It's
I'm a good listener.
you are. I can verify that.
I just thought that was funny. No, you know what?
Yeah.
I think that is interesting, and I told you this before we started doing this. But when
Yeah.
you first told me you were thinking about doing guitars, you didn't really know what your niche would be. Just that, oh, I'll
Yeah.
be one that would build them. And
Right, right, right.
I was just like, look at. We were just talking about how the market responds in certain ways to certain things.
Yeah.
Fender are not offering exactly what we want. So
Right.
you're
Right.
filling a niche right there. And if you could keep the cost reasonable, and I mean, especially
Right.
as you scale up, It's totally possible, and it's something
Yeah.
that how many guitars would you just estimate? Because there's no way you know this number off the top of your head.
Yeah, yeah.
How
Right.
many like mod guitars have you built for people?
My goodness. Definitely in the hundreds at this point over the past like 15 years. As far as like fully custom builds with custom finishes, it's in the dozens, like for sure. I really only started to do those um, over the past few years since the pandemic, um, like striking up partnerships with finishers and stuff like that, because otherwise I usually did them within just like people within the offset community, that, oh yeah, so and so does finishes in their garage. It's like, okay, I'm doing a build for my wife, right? Like that's going to be good enough, this is going to be a gift. That's going to be fine. But then, yeah, so um yeah, the cost thing is going to be important. I feel like right now, like the most expensive like custom builds I do are expensive because they're using like genuine Fender necks, which
Yeah.
at the beginning of our conversation, we,
Yeah.
I'm getting them from the same place other folks are. I'm not getting wholesale Stratosphere prices. I buy them
Yeah.
from Stratosphere.
And
So,
just
of
to
course,
reiterate real quick,
yeah.
prices that are being alluded to right now, the Stratosphere's current pricing for a Johnny Marr Fender Jaguar neck, and that's one of your most requested
Hmm.
parts that
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
want,
Right.
is just under $1,000, and that is
Right.
for the neck.
That's just for the neck. That's just for the neck. And just for reference, like at this point last year, or even just last month, you know what I mean? Like before the price increase started, they were usually without tuners. I think they went for 5.99, and then with the tuners, it was 6.99, and it's not offset parts only. I've like noticed the change across the entire American produced like nitro finish, even non-nitro finish. They're even charging almost $1,000 for like the American professional. Or like I saw like a Stratocaster that was like American Professional to like D-shaped Stratocaster neck, and it was like 8.99. And I was like, oh bro, that was like 5.99 last month.
Yeah.
So I don't know like if it's because of just the way the economy is starting to kind of go right now, or if the agreement. Yeah, we already covered this stuff
It's
earlier.
fine.
We
It's
don't
fine.
know. We don't know
We don't
how
know.
how
But
yeah, we don't
at
know.
the end of the day, though, this isn't something you need to worry about too much. Because
Yeah.
if you're going to be building guitars, you're not going to be buying parts from that, and you're going to
Right,
be
right, right.
putting them under your own name.
Right, right,
That's the
right,
most
right.
important thing to kind of just
Right.
take away from that.
Yeah. I think I'm moving in the direction it hopefully gets at least you excited, Jim, but I'm moving in the direction of hopefully partnering up with a Japanese manufacturer for the next. I need
I,
that. I
you
need
really
that.
left a lot to my imagination with who that could possibly be.
If they can
I
do it
won't
for
say it.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If they can do it for me, then man, I can't ask for more, to be honest, because the work that
Sure.
they do is is at least what I have found on everything that I've worked with always. It's like this is just spot on somehow every time, and I don't know how they do it.
Pride in their work.
That it's that integrity thing.
Offer them with
Yep.
two different versions. Offer one, vintage frets, small
Mm,
neck, kind of like the
okay.
V62, and then
Okay.
one like the AV65.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just a bound neck, no blocks, just a bound
No
neck, a
blocks.
little bit bigger on it, and that's.
Yeah.
And I
You
know
think
that
that's
manufacturer will do it, but I think that gives you both ends of it because a lot
right?
of the pre 65 Jaguars before the
Yeah.
binder was introduced, they typically did have like somewhat slimmer necks to the ones that were
Right.
later, especially at the nut. The nut width on those,
Yeah.
you can find vintage Jags where they were around like 0.78, 0.79. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's very little at the nut compared to
Yeah.
direction that the modern reissues of the 60s models go like
Right.
65, and then the
Right.
American originals those are start
Right.
like 0.85.
Those are
Yeah, those are
yeah.
big. Those are
Yeah.
big necks.
Those are getting up there. Very, very chunky. It was surprising. I had a even just comparing, like I just got a 65 Jazzmaster. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. I always associated 65 with chunky. like very chunky. It's not like, but at least when I compare them now to the things that are supposedly using 65 as a reference, 65, 66, like, nah, dude, like you, first of all, like almost all of these ones I'm finding have the 1 5/8. I don't think they started to do 1.65 inches until like way late, like at the end of the 60s, maybe into the 70s or whatever. But yeah, that just makes for just a much more comfortable neck, and I was just surprised to see that, where it's just like, oh yeah, even feeling like the AV2 66, at first I was like, oh yeah, this is slimmer. Because what was I comparing it to? If I was comparing to other American guitars, I'm comparing it to the American original. I'm comparing it to AV65, which are like, oof. These are even the Vintera one. I loved that neck, the Jazzmaster Vintera one necks, and even the Jaguar, but those were chunky. Those were quite chunky. But yeah, the actual 65, the 65 Jag that I have right here, it was like, dude, this is like what I remember. This is what I remember, like early nine or like the 90s Jaguar, like Japanese Jaguar necks to feel like, just
Yeah.
wonderfully thin, but not too thin.
Before they switched from being made at Fujigen exclusively to by
Mm,
I and Dyna, they did definitely had a way slimmer feel than what preceded
yeah.
after that. And then although the JG66 is post 1995 and onward from there,
Mm,
before 2017, I won't dig
yeah.
too far, but those
Right.
never got that big either with the neck shapes.
Right. 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 Yeah. Those were a golden. Those were the, I feel like, even though they were sunburst or candy apple red, it's funny how I feel like candy apple red is starting to get gate kept now too. Where it's just like all of a sudden candy apple red, like 15 years ago or whatever, that was like, it was like sunburst, candy apple red, and Olympic white were like the three, and maybe black if you got lucky. Um, but now candy apple red is an exotic color again. I always loved that color. But back then I could find one for like $500,
Yeah.
like those beautiful slim profile, you know. Yeah, they needed work, but man, that was a goal. That was, and I was too young to ever have gotten into the whole, the mythical era of like you go into a pawn shop and you're finding like a 60s, you're finding a 60s Jaguar and Jazzmaster for $500. If I had a time machine.
I'm sure I was in those pawn shops, but I was not in the
Yeah.
right state of mind to know what was
Right.
happening, to know what a good deal was. I got really lucky with my first real Strat, which was a
Yeah.
1982 Fender JV, and
Oh wow.
doesn't get better than that. And
Yeah.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
and there was no internet to tell me how, like, oh, these are like,
Right.
oh, it's just like, oh, it's a Japanese Fender. It's cheap compared to the American ones, but I like the way
Right.
it felt. I didn't know anything. I
Yeah.
just wanted to play guitar.
Yeah. You still have that guitar?
Oh, of course, I still have that guitar.
Nice.
I've made many mistakes
Unfortunately,
in my life. That's not one of them.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Oh my
I got one more
gosh.
question for you because
Yeah, 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 sure.
I don't want to keep you too long here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you make a Jaguar style guitar and you make a
Uh-huh.
Master style guitar, I'll keep it to those two.
Uh-huh.
What would you name
Yeah.
each one?
Oh my gosh. So I don't remember if I had sent you the headstock picture that I
Yeah,
had
you
like
did.
developed. I did. One of them I was just playing around with the names, but I was just like, "Oh, I want to play off of it." And so for the Jazz Master, I had the Django, which was like for Django Reinhardt, a
Yeah.
jazz master. I'm into puns. I wasn't sure, big cats. It's a little harder. I tried playing around with names on the headstock and I didn't arrive yet at one for a play off of the big cat name. So if you end up having any ideas.
I will say this, Cheetah's off the table. There's a
Yeah.
Japanese company called Rhythm that already makes the Cheetah,
Okay.
so you can't do
Okay.
that.
No cheetah. No cheetah. Maybe I'll go real cheeky and just I'm trying to think of like funny like house breed like cat names.
Oh my God.
No, I'm not gonna put like British. I'm not gonna call it the Scottish Fold or anything like that. But I'm thinking if I find something that's like catchy, um, then maybe. I don't know. That's one thing, and it doesn't have to stick to that. It doesn't have to stick to that convention, but yeah, that's something that I still have to continue to play because I do want it to be a nod to what it's inspired by, but not, necessarily
A total
just
ripoff, yeah.
generic, like I want it to be fun and even with the logo too, like I tried to because there you see a lot of custom builders who will go like very well known who command quite top dollar for their
Tell me,
offset
tell me without
guitar
telling
builds.
me who it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the headstock and you're using like the same exact font as Fender and stuff, and that's great. That's great. Um, I wanted to play with it a little bit, especially as someone who's a big fan of just design. I used to be a design teacher, so it's just like I would be shaming myself if I didn't at least try to play around with the typography to make it a little bit more unique. So yeah, and I'm not sure yet. Like, do I call it Totally Wired Guitars? Do I name it something else? Like for the company name. Like, how do I figure that stuff out? I'll tell you one thing that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to use Chat GPT for it.
I would know. I would know.
You would
Well,
know.
yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just first
Yeah,
business plan, business name, and then
right.
because you already know what you want to build and
Yeah,
making the establishments the other established connections that you need. Because I know
right.
one, you're totally on the right track. And I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah,
And financially, it's very good too for the customers as well, because it means you keep
yeah.
costs down by a substantial margin.
Right, right, right,
Uh,
right.
I, I hope you do it, and I hope it's something that one day I get to play one of those things. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I will when I'm done with one, like one of the first batches, I'll
Oh
send you one,
God,
man. I've got
we'll do a
to.
full demo.
I need to have Audiomo review.
Audiomo, I've never heard that before. That sounds like a Pokemon.
Oh, wait, how do you pronounce it?
Audiomo.
Audiomo.
Yeah,
It did sound like a Pokemon. I've been pronouncing it in my head that way the whole time.
that's really
I'm
funny.
sorry,
Yeah,
man.
I can think of like five Pokemon that actually kind of sounds like when you pronounce it like that.
It always comes back to the Pokemon.
Oh well, you have a 7-year-old, and it will always come down to
Yeah,
Pokemon
it's
feed.
true. It's true.
But thank you for
Uh,
coming on tonight.
yeah, yeah,
Got
yeah.
anything you
Dude,
want to
thank you
plug
so
or
much for having
anything
me.
before you get going?
What's that?
You got anything you want to plug or ways people can find you again?
No, no, I think just yeah, just find me on Instagram or if you haven't already, like I'm pretty new on YouTube, so you can find me at youtube.com/ at totally wired guitars. Could definitely use some more subs over there as I continue my YouTubing journey. And the uphill battle and climb that is the YouTube journey.
Let me give you one piece of advice. Once
Yeah.
you're monetized, your subs don't matter. They don't care. None of it doesn't do you any good. It's pointless. Don't
Right.
ever ask for subs. You're good. You're good. Don't worry.
Right. Okay.
It took
Awesome.
me years to figure that out, but I'm
I
serious.
didn't know.
It
All right.
really,
Go watch my videos
yeah,
then.
watch his videos and watch all the ads, most
Oh,
importantly.
yeah.
Click through the ad.
Turn your ad blocker off, you punks.
All right. You're a shit stir. Well, thank you guys. I'll try and put chapters down below. And yeah, we will see you on the next one.